We had figures this morning from the ONS, which, the government said that they'd exceeded what a lot of, what would you call them, financial predictions and forecasters had even expected. Well, let's get the take of the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Jonathan Ashworth, in all of this. So joins us this morning. Good morning to you. So the unemployment numbers rose to 4.2%, up from 3.9% in June. That's good news, isn't it?
Well, unemployment is increasing, and it's increased at quite a fast rate. And the numbers who are out of work also for reasons of sickness and poor health is at the highest on record. That'll be a reflection of the fact that under the Conservatives, we've got over 7 million people on an NHS waiting list. Of course, we've also got a number of people in their 50s who are out of work and are looking for work. And we've released some analysis today that suggests that only 759 of them have been given a chance to reskill and retrain under the Conservatives. So this is a government now which, after 13 years, is really failing on the economy. More people are losing their jobs. And, of course, thousands of people across the country are really struggling, paying more on their mortgages because of the Conservative government. After 13 years now, this is a failing government, a last gasp government, who have had their chance.
Well, look, it's never good news when the unemployment figures go up, obviously. However, we know there's about 1 million jobs to fill. I mean, there's all this talk about, sort of getting migrants in to fill some of these jobs. Now, I know it's not going to work for everyone. I know some of the jobs are in places where some people aren't living. You're not going to commute so far for a basic job. However, there is work to be done in this country. How do we encourage people to do it?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. There's 1 million vacancies. I mean, vacancies have gone down a little bit, but there are still vacancies. And yet, at the same time, we've got young people looking for work, and we've got many people in their 50s who say they want to work. Many people who are, at the moment, are off on the sick, but who say with the right support, they would return to work. And the government are doing nothing. In fact, they tell people in their 50s to get on their bike and deliver chicken tikka masalas. Now, I'm not knocking people who work for delivery or Just Eat, but obviously that's not going to be appropriate for everybody in their 50s to be cycling around cities and towns delivering takeaways. We should be offering people the opportunity to reskill and retrain. We should be offering people proper support and help. But we're not doing that. And that means the benefit bill is increasing again. And in fact, the government are going to bust their own rules on the benefit bill. You've got over something like 5 million people on out-of-work benefits. I want to get people back to work, and that's Labour's priority, to get people back to work, to get people into jobs. That's how we make people better off, and that's how we grow the economy.
And what do you make of announcements like we heard yesterday about relaxing visa schemes for people to come in from places like Mexico or South Korea to fill some of these vacancies? Do you accept the argument that that is actually preventing sometimes British people from getting back into the work market, the labour market? Or, as other people suggest, they're doing the work that we simply don't want to do?
Well, the problem is we're not training people. I mean, my analysis today reveals that people in their 50s, over 55, only people in that 759 of them have been given the chance to go on a retraining boot camp. We're not reskilling people, we're not training people to do the jobs. So we've got to support young people who are looking for work, we've got to support people in their 50s, and people who are on sickness and disability benefits, many of whom say they want to work. We've got to reform that welfare system. I've said I want to reform it. I've put forward detailed proposals of how we reform the benefit system. But at the moment, we've got people stuck on welfare, going nowhere. Ministers tell them, get a job at Deliveroo, delivering chicken tikka masalas if you're over 50. It's a complacent attitude. We need to reform our system to help people move into these jobs.
Yeah, but it falls back, a lot of it, doesn't it? And I'm taking sickness and disability benefit out of the equation for this one, because that's a different thing. But for people who are just on the dole, as we always used to call it, we've got to make work pay, haven't we? And this has been a fundamental problem for a long time.
Well, yeah, that's why, we talked about having a proper living wage for people. But, people are struggling because they cannot afford the basics in life, because people's mortgages have gone up or people's rent has gone up. And why have the mortgage gone up by so much? Because of the decisions taken by Conservative ministers last autumn. We're all paying hundreds of pounds, if not thousands of pounds more on our mortgage this year. because of decisions taken by this government. And I just think that, apparently it's NHS week this week from the Conservatives. They haven't got a plan to fix the NHS. And to me, it just shows you that they've run out of ideas. They are really a last gasp government, as I call them. And they've had their chance. And they've not got any solutions to the issues facing Britain today.
It's interesting, though. I mean, you're talking about NHS week, and Steve Barclay, the Health Secretary, has been talking about if you want to know what the NHS would be like under Labour, you just have to look at what's happening in Wales. Their waiting list's even worse than over here in England.
If you want to know what the NHS was like under Labour, look what the last Labour government did. We took waiting times from 18 months to 18 weeks. We had some of the lowest waiting lists and waiting times on record and the highest satisfaction. And what have we had after 13 years under the Conservatives? 13 years of cutting 12,000 beds in our NHS. 13 years of failing to recruit the doctors and nurses and midwives and paramedics we've got the highest waiting lists in history under Rishi Sunak. This government has run our NHS into the ground. But Labour government to rebuild it and save it.
Forgive me, we talked to you an awful lot when you were Shadow Health Secretary, and one of the things you used to say an awful lot was, well, there needs to be more money in the NHS, needs to be better funded, more money. Well, actually, that's not what your replacement is saying now, is he? Wes Streeting is saying there needs to be major reform. A big injection of cash won't solve the problem.
Well, what I used to say is we needed investment to recruit the doctors, nurses, paramedics and midwives that we need in the NHS, because we're desperately short of doctors and nurses in our NHS. And what the Labour Party and my successor Wes Streeting has put forward is a really detailed plan to recruit and train the doctors, nurses, midwives and paramedics that we need in our NHS today, because we don't have capacity in our NHS because we don't have enough staff. So we're going to recruit doctors and nurses and train them. That will help us build capacity. But the other thing you can now do is that by reforming the system and using the amazing advances in modern technology such as AI and so on, you can really improve diagnostics, you can really improve treatment in the NHS, and that is something we're going to do as well.
Jonathan Ashworth, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much.